In the center of the universe, on the planet Eternia, lies Castle Grayskull, an ancient fortress of mystery and its powers sought by the dark forces of Snake Mountain, ruled by the demon Skeletor and his evil acolytes. The most powerful man in the universe, He-Man, leads the other Guardians in defending the secrets of Castle Grayskull. It is said that those who control Grayskull have the power to become masters of the universe. He-Man rides out for Castle Grayskull with two prisoners from Snake Mountain, Spikor and Clawful. As they approach the gates, they are quickly greeted by the sorceress. Spikor emerges and reveals himself to be Skeletor in disguise, declaring himself the Lord of Destruction. Before he could finish his sentence, the sorceress blasts him with her magic. The supposed He-Man comes up from behind and grabs her, revealing to be Faker in disguise. Clawful comes forward and reveals herself to be Evil Lyn, who tries to break through her barrier. Skeletor reveals that after years of attacking Castle Grayskull, he finally discovers Grayskull's secret and opens a secret staircase underground. Sorceress activates the castle's protection to fend off Skeletor's army. She calls out for He-Man's aid while Skeletor ventures into the castle's depths, seeking the real power behind Grayskull. Meanwhile, in the heart of Eternia, a ceremony is being held to knight Teela as the Man-at-Arms. The fearful Cringer hides under the table, scared of all the fireworks. Captain of the Guard Teela shows up, and King Randor and Queen Marlena greet her. Duncan praises his daughter Teela for growing up to be a brilliant technician, a lethal warrior, and a master strategist when Prince Adam suddenly joins them. The ceremony is interrupted when the sorceress calls out for He-Man and the others at Castle Grayskull. Adam then calls forth the power of Grayskull to transform into He-Man with the Sword of Power and turn Cringer into Battle Cat. At the same time, Duncan and Teela lead the heroic warriors on the battlefield against Skeletor's army. Duncan destroys Faker, but is knocked down by Evil Lyn, who emerges from the shadows. Orko appears just in time to save Duncan from Evil Lyn's magic, and Teela later slices her staff into two. Duncan then confronts Night Stalker and asks Teela to go ahead and stop Skeletor. As she slowly descends the winding staircase, Skeletor sneaks up from behind and attacks her. He-Man and Battle Cat save her when he is about to attack her with his magic. He-Man explains that they are at the heart of the castle, where the Council of Elders buried the secrets of Grayskull. He claims that all magic that flows through Eternia begins here. Evil Lyn shows up and knocks down Battle Cat with powerful dark magic. While Teela faces off with Evil Lyn, He-Man charges at Skeletor, but he attacks him with dark magic that bounces off the wall and hits him. When Skeletor tries to pick up the Sword of Power, Mossman appears and restrains him. Mossman demands that Skeletor retreat with his army, but he refuses and uses intense fire magic to incinerate him into ashes. Skeletor tricks an enraged He-Man to stab him with the sword, revealing his plan to use it as a key to unlock the Hall of Wisdom. He explains that the Hall of Wisdom stores all of the knowledge of the universe, where the Council of Elders kept their powers inside a magical orb, and he then shattered the orb with his staff. As powerful magic stored inside leaks out, time is suddenly frozen, and Sorceress appears before them. Sorceress claims that she isn't strong enough to contain the blast and fears that the world will soon be destroyed. With their fates sealed, Teela wonders why she went to all the trouble to stop time, to which Sorceress explains she wanted to see Teela one last time. He-Man suggests using the Sword of Power as a conduit to contain the blast. Sorceress claims that the sword could contain the blast, but he would not survive wielding it. Despite the risks, He-Man accepts his fate and carries on with the plan. Wielding all that power undid He-Man's transformation, revealing his secret to Teela that he is Adam. Skeletor refuses to give up on the magic and holds tightly to Adam. Suddenly, a bright light shines in the sky, and Adam and Skeletor die from a massive explosion. Duncan reports to the king and queen and informs them of the grave news. Queen Marlena breaks down and reveals that Prince Adam, who also happens to be He-Man, has died in battle. King Randor is so shocked to discover Adam's secret and death that he lashes out at Duncan and banishes him, blaming him for everything that's happened. Teela is so outraged at being kept in the dark that she quits being a soldier and walks out. Years have passed since the final battle at Castle Grayskull, and magic has left Eternia. Having left the kingdom, Teela wanders as a mercenary with her friend Andra, working together to retrieve lost artifacts. They carry on a request to retrieve the Glove of Globala and track it back to a dump when the humanoid skunk, Stinkor, suddenly attacks them. Teela skillfully defeats him and returns to the priestess who hired them. The priestess explains how mercenaries steal magical relics, which later become priceless artifacts after magic leaves Eternia. Before they leave, they are approached by an old woman named Majestra, who hires them to recover an old goblet at Snake Mountain, to which Teela quickly agrees. Teela is later reminded of when she and He-Man sneaked into Snake Mountain. She got caught in a trapdoor while He-Man was busy fighting with Whiplash. Using the same trapdoor, Teela and Andra sneak inside the enemy lair to find men in cloaks headed for a gathering. They follow them using disguises to discover that Triclops has now led a cult worshipping Motherboard and the Way of the Machine. He forces his followers to drink from a cup, turning them into half-machines. Determined to retrieve the goblet, Teela reveals herself and distracts them while Andra sneaks to get the cup. Teela calls out Triclops and Trapjaw, who appear to be this new cult's leaders. Triclops explains how they were made to realize the error of their ways, having become overly reliant on magic. After taunting the enemy, Teela single-handedly fought against their overwhelming numbers. Andra quickly grabs the cup during the confusion while Teela defeats Blast Attack, who inadvertently self-destructs as they escape. Teela and Andra meet back with Majestra and hand her the old goblet she requested. As they walk away, Majestra hires them for one more task, to deliver the cup to Castle Grayskull, much to their shock. Teela refuses, but Andra convinces her to accept the task, claiming that anyone interested in Grayskull must be suspicious. Andra also explains how she has always wanted to become an adventurer, and this would be her only chance at it. When they arrive at Grayskull, the castle appears abandoned and in ruins. Teela explains how, after the final battle, the king decreed it to be a forbidden zone, and that they were already breaking the law by just being there. Majestra quickly heads inside and walks up to an old and dying sorceress holding whatever magic is left on Eternia. Teela then confronts Majestra, and she reveals herself as Evil Lyn. Evil Lyn quickly unleashes her disguise to reveal the goblet, the head of the Havoc staff Skeletor used to have. She used it to strengthen the sorceress with whatever magic was left in it. When Teela thinks she is hurting her, she throws her spear at Evil Lyn, but Cringer shows up and catches it. Teela is shocked to find Cringer protecting Evil Lyn and how Evil Lyn is helping the sorceress. Sorceress speaks up and explains that she asked her to save the last ember of true magic left in Eternia. Evil Lyn is surprised that she trusted her with such a big task, to which Sorceress explains that she believes their interests align. Evil Lyn then uses her staff to store the Orb of Ember inside it, greatly weakening the sorceress. Evil Lyn explains that magic created Eternia, which later became the nexus of all places and times. The Sword of Power binds that magic to their world, so with the sword gone, so does the magic that goes with it. Without magic, Eternia will soon rot and die with the rest of the universe. Sorceress explains that the only way for magic to return to Eternia is to call upon the power of Grayskull using the Sword of Power. Teela worries that the sword was destroyed in the final battle, but Evil Lyn claims it was merely divided. Legend is told that the Sword of Power was made of two ancient blades of steel, one forged in the Hall of Heroes in Preternia, and the other forged in Subternia, the accursed land of the dead. When the sword absorbed all of the magic from the exploding orb of power, the sword broke into its twin halves and returned to the realms in which they were forged. Sorceress then tasks Tila to find the two halves and use the ember to reforge the Sword of Power. Tila refuses to be dragged back into their world, claiming to have built a life away from magic. When she walks away, Cringer convinces her to take this task, which he describes as something Adam would have entrusted to her. Before they head out for Subternia, Tila claims they need one more person for the journey. She explains they would need the skills of a weapons master to reforge the Sword of Power. Tila tells Andra tales of her adventure with He-Man. When they were caught aboard the Sea Eagle in the Crystal Sea, Skeletor reveals that they have formed an alliance with Merman, and despite their differences, they share a common hatred towards him. With that said, Merman's Aquaticans pull them back into the ocean to drown them when Man-at-Arms shows up and frees them underwater. They return to the ship to defeat Skeletor and Merman. Evil Lyn claims that despite He-Man being a hindrance, Man-at-Arms proved to be the real threat. She tells everyone repeatedly that he is the most dangerous man in all of Eternia. She tells Andra not to chase dangerous men, as they will never return her affection. When Tila dismisses her, Evil Lyn points out their unrequited love for men. In a nearby village, pilgrims line up for their chance at a few drops of enchanted water from one of the last remaining magic fountains. An old man later spills it on the ground, angering one of the pilgrims for wasting such precious water. A hooded man stands up for the old man and prepares for a beatdown when Triclops and his followers arrive to attack all of them who still rely on magic. Seeing the people being attacked, the hooded man single-handedly fights against their overwhelming numbers. When Trapjaw is about to fire the quartz cannon at him, Andre sneaks under the vehicle and shuts it down. Evil Lyn and Tila also join the battle and attack Triclops and his men. One of Triclops' men catches them off guard, but Beastman shows up and saves them when they are about to finish them off. Beastman has sworn loyalty to Evil Lyn and claims that anyone who threatens her is an enemy of his, to which they were later sent running away. When Tila praises the hooded man for protecting the pilgrims, he reveals himself to be the disgraced Man-at-Arms and Tila's adoptive father. Tila explains they needed his skills as the Man-at-Arms to reforge the Sword of Power, but he refuses, claiming to be forbidden to weld anything by royal decree. He claims he would quickly be executed if he ever welded two pieces of metal together. He hurriedly returns to his home with the magic water, where they find a weakened Orko. Evil Lyn explains that Orko's poor condition is proof of the situation worsening, having lost all magic in Eternia. Despite that, Duncan still declined their request and walks away. Tila tries to convince him otherwise when Roboto suddenly shows up and joins their conversation. When Duncan wouldn't budge, Orko insisted on going with them. Tila turns him down, worried for his safety, especially since he's not feeling well. Regardless, they would still need Duncan's help, for only he knows how to reforge the Sword of Power. Roboto claims that he too knows how to do it, given that he was built with Duncan's memories. Now that they're both going, Duncan joins them, but Tila refuses, having changed her mind. Now that Roboto will join them, she asks Duncan to go to Grayskull to help the dying sorceress. Before they separated, Duncan wanted to come clean with a secret, but Evil Lyn interrupted him and claimed they had no time for it. On a ship headed for the gates of Subternia, they are suddenly under attack by Merman and his Aquaticans. After blowing up their ship's engines, the Aquaticans emerge from the water and surround them. Merman shows up before them, still furious at Evil Lyn. Without He-Man to stop them, they could have taken control of Eternia with her on land and him on the sea. As the enemy closes in on them, Man-at-Arms arrived to the rescue and single-handedly defeated all the Aquaticans while Beastman restrains Merman. Evil Lyn convinces him to escort them to the gates of Subternia in exchange for his freedom. Merman complies and uses his powers to summon the waves to take them to their destination. Merman is freed, but not before warning them that the sea never forgets. While everyone heads for shore, Man-at-Arms heads to Grayskull as promised, but not before reminding Tila to be careful, and they share a warm embrace. They later find a giant obelisk where the Gate of Subternia is supposed to be, and evil Lyn then places the head of the Havoc staff on the corpse in front of the gate. Suddenly, the ground shook, and the obelisk opened up to reveal an underground long winding staircase. Before evil Lyn follows them, she pulls out the Havoc staff from the corpse and closes the door behind them. As they venture deeper into the darkness, Orko tells them Trollin tales of Subternia. Tila uses her weapon to light the way when she suddenly realizes they have disappeared. A voice calls out to her, to which she follows the lights. Suddenly, Scareglow reveals himself before her and declares himself the ruler of shadows. Tila explains that she is looking for a sword, and Scareglow immediately knows what she is searching for. He promises to give her the dark half of the Sword of Power in exchange for her fear. Tila insists she fears nothing, but Scareglow claims she is dripping in it. That said, she agrees to his request in exchange for the Sword of Power and the safe return of her companions. Suddenly, she finds herself in the Well of Darkness, to which Scareglow explains that if she survives her demons, she will find what she is looking for. If she fails, she will spend eternity with him to become part of his collection. Orko and evil Lyn find themselves in a subterranean illusion that resembles Orko's homeworld, Trolla. Orko tries to use magic to find the others, but it fails. As they look for clues, Orko suggests looking for someone at the Magic Academy to help them. As they approach the center of the room, they find the spell spring, which Orko explains is the source of all Trollin magic and their life force. He was surprised to see it dry and no one around, so he later worries that this may no longer be just an illusion. Worried that he may be the last Trollin in the universe, he confides in her of his past. He explains how his parents named him after the highest position for Trollins, which they hope he'll achieve one day. He was revealed to be named after the all-knowing and all-powerful Oracle, but because he struggled to pronounce it when he was young, he mistook Oracle for Orko. Unlike the others who find it easy to use magic, he struggled to do even the simplest magic right, and has become a failure since then. Evil Lyn comforts him, having understood the struggles he went through. She then casts a little magic to lift his spirits. Suddenly, they hear whispers, to which shadow Trollins appear and converge to become a giant shadow creature. When evil Lyn tried to attack it, she ran out of magic, and they were forced into running. Orko saves evil Lyn when she grows frustrated over her magic not working. Tired of running, evil Lyn decides to face their fear, but when her magic isn't enough, she pulls Orko to help her defeat their monster. Meanwhile, Andra, Roboto, and Beastman wind up in the middle of the wasteland. Roboto tries to scan the place when creatures emerge from the shadows to attack them in every direction. Roboto claims that these creatures are reacting to her fear, who, unlike him, is only a robot. Andra gets a brilliant idea when Roboto mentions enlightening. After some quick tinkering of Roboto's function, she then programs him to send out a powerful magic pulse to destroy their enemies. Tila wakes up in the middle of nowhere when He-Man suddenly shows up before her. When she proves to be a skilled fighter, He-Man tries to attack her mind, claiming that he truly never trusted her with his secret. Despite denying it, she is clearly troubled by his words, and it eventually reveals her fears of inadequacy, abandonment, frailty, and isolation. Scareglow later realizes her true fear is learning that she is not ordinary, and that being special scares her. Tila eventually realizes that everything she has is her power, even her fear. Scareglow refuses to accept it, reminding her of the deal they made. Suddenly, she channels her inner power to summon the Sword of Power, which she uses to break the illusion and return to the others. Tila later relinquishes the dark half of the Sword of Power to evil Lyn, using the last of her magic to open a portal towards Preternia. Before they can cross over, Scareglow appears before them and stops them from leaving. Orko stands up to his fear and uses magic to stop and defeat Scareglow at the risk of his own life. The explosion blew everyone away and the portal closed in on them. Grieving the loss of a dear friend, Tila believes the alliance is a mistake and prepares to fight Beastman and Evil Lyn when Prince Adam suddenly appears before them, shocking everyone. After reuniting with Adam, they later make a grave for their fallen comrade Orko, and Adam, Tila, and Evil Lyn take their time to say their last words. Adam later asks Mossman to give the grave a piece of Orko's homeworld, and he changes the grass around the gravestone to that scene on Trolla. Adam wonders why they have come to Preternia and quickly surrenders his half of the sword to Tila. He then tells them they can ask the legendary Hero for assistance, reforging the Sword of Power. Adam explains that although they might be unable to return to Eternia, he asks Tila for help with an idea that may secure them a way back. As they venture deeper into the forest, Tila is still upset at Adam for keeping her in the dark about his secret. Adam suspects that if there's a way back to Eternia, it would definitely be on Greyskull Tower. She wonders why they are heading in the opposite direction, and he claims they would need to seek out Greyskull himself. He explains that they would need to catch up to the other champions in the middle of the wild hunt. Later that night, they gather by a fire, to which Greyskull reveals that there is a gate within his tower that will take them back to Eternia. It was also revealed that Greyskull was the first champion, and the elders named the castle after him. When Adam asks if he ever used it to return, Greyskull explains that they are already dead, and that returning to Eternia would be unnatural for him. Adam chases Tila into the forest to ask why she has come to seek the Sword of Power. Tila refuses to tell him, worried that it will only burden him with the truth. After Tila walks out on him, Adam talks to Mossman, who overhears their conversation. He wonders if he should return with them to Eternia, to which Mossman reminds him that he may never be able to return should he do so, forcing him to make a difficult decision. Hero still couldn't believe that the Sword of Power had been split into two, which he explained they would have no way of reforging. He claims that the sword was originally forged by Trollan magesmiths thousands of years ago using intense fire magic. Roboto claims that he can fire the blade, given his heart is a quark collider capable of withstanding intense, powerful magic. Andra suggests converting the entire tower into a giant forge to contain the heat strong enough to merge the twin swords again. Evil Lyn then entrusts whatever is left of the ember to Roboto, who uses it to start a reactor inside him. After everyone goes to a safe distance, Roboto carries on with the task of reforging the Sword of Power, despite the many error warnings. He causes a massive explosion after successfully reforging the almighty Sword of Power. Andra and Tila quickly run inside to find a dying Roboto, who, despite everything else, realizes that he is more than just a machine, having felt fear for the first time despite being a robot. Tila, Andra, Evil Lyn, and Beastman set out to return to Eternia after Greyskull activates the portal. Despite the other champion's objection, Adam returns to Eternia with the others to become their champion again, and call upon the power of Greyskull. They later arrive outside Greyskull during a battle against Triclops and his cultists. Man-at-Arms takes out the big guns and shoots at the enemy from afar, forcing their retreat. Duncan is surprised to find Tila has returned with the sword, but is more shocked to see Adam alive and well, to which an overjoyed Cringer jumps at him. Adam and the others head to the Hall of Wisdom, where he calls upon the power of Greyskull. The sky turns ominous red as a bright pillar of light appears inside the castle. The weakened sorceress steps into the pillar to restore her youth, while a new power of orb is remade and kept inside a new Hall of Wisdom. Everything is going well, but when Adam is about to transform into He-Man, Skeletor materializes from Evil Lyn's staff and stabs him from behind. Skeletor explains how when he died in the explosion, he was forced to seek refuge in Evil Lyn's wand to protect his essence. With the Sword of Power in his hands, Skeletor calls upon Evil Lyn and Beastman to come to his side. He then invokes the power of Grayskull with the sword to take on a more sinister form, and declares himself the master of the universe as an ominous image of him looms in the sky over Castle Grayskull. Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos, and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. See you next time.